Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. We are recording this episode on New Year's Day, so happy New Year's to all you viewers, listeners that tune into the Pit Press. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully, you guys got all your New Year's resolutions in order, and just based off of what we watched in the last UNM basketball game, they kind of revisited some things on how they were playing basketball. So let's jump into it. But before we start talking some hoops, I want to introduce the panel. Joining me tonight, the lawyer of the group, attorney, also play-by-play for ProView Sports here in Albuquerque, Mr. Nick Nunez. What's up, Nick? How are you doing, man?
Eric, Dad, good evening. Good to be with you both. Happy New Year to Lobo Nation. Tough way to end 2025 for Lobo fans, although UNM women's basketball did get a win on New Year's Eve. But yeah, Eric, ready to get down and talk some hoops in 2026.
And the second half of the Nunez duo, the Lobo fan since 1970, and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, what's up, man? How was your New Year's Eve?
It was good, man. Just kind of mellow. My wife and I had a nice dinner together, and yeah, it was. I watched the ball drop, from New York, but it was already 12. It was already later. New Year's Rockin' Eve. I watched that and then went to sleep, man. But it was kind of uneventful, and glad to be on here talking some Lobo basketball with both of you.
Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot on my New Year's Eve either. We were in bed early and just kind of spent some time cleaning and preparing for a long day of football with the college football playoff. Some exciting games and then some not so exciting games. That Alabama blowout was kind of a sight to see there. But let's talk some Lobo hoops. So I'm gonna kind of pass it around, have some discussion topics. Lobos fall to Boise State on the road, 62-53 in a game the Lobos didn't shoot particularly well in that game. But Nick, I'm gonna pass it over to you first. Just kind of an opening pulse check with you. Coming into this game, opened up Mountain West play for UNM. How did this game feel to you? Right, like I think from my just opening take, I thought it was more of like a defensive battle, but UNM just didn't handle Boise State's defensive pressure that well. But what was your initial knee-jerk reaction?
Missed opportunity for UNM basketball, Eric. I think that's the consensus around Lobo Nation. UNM starts the game out 8-0, pretty efficient from the field to get the ball to Tomislav Buljan inside. He gets to the line. After that, their offense cools off. They scored 19 points in the first half, shot 8 of 30 from the field, 0 of 12 from three. Then the second half, kind of the same thing, right? They start the first 4 minutes on like a 13-0 run. They went on a 15-0 run if you count Uriah Tenet's buzzer beater. And then they just couldn't sustain any offense, man. I really think Boise's size, physicality, and the way they play defense just really made it challenging for UNM to get quality shots. They shot an abysmal 3 of 25 from the three-point line. Just couldn't hit, man. Couldn't hit. Wasn't their night, and a missed opportunity to get a quad one win on the road. But they got to rebound. They got to bounce back against Wyoming on Saturday.
Ed, Chris Howell didn't start in this game. They had to get a spot start from Luke Hopt, who I thought played fairly well. He's kind of been a guy they've been able to fall back on and rely on, but they just didn't have that senior or that upperclassman leadership on the floor. What was your initial reaction with this game and seeing the Lobos struggle the way they did?
Oh, they 20 of 65 and then 3 of 25 from three won't cut it. They and I think Nick mentioned, and so did Mark Smith in his write-up, there's 2 good runs that they have to begin in the game and then at the start of the second half. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever doldrums they were in the first half, they're out of them now. In the second half, it's a good start. And then all of a sudden they went ice cold. And there's some things that I saw that I thought they got exploited a little bit. Nick wrote a great article about Boise State size. And there were some times in there, Albury got swatted at the rim a couple times, usually, downhill driver. With that burst they talked about on the broadcast, he's going to get to the rim. They like rim touches, paint touches, and he wasn't able to finish because of the going into the trees there. Bullion, a couple of times I told Nick and Kenny Thomas, he went off one leg. They forced him off that sweet spot in the paint, and he goes off with 1 foot. You're not going to make any shots. You got to go off 2, off balance. So I saw a couple of things that they were exploited a little bit, and we mentioned Jake Hall. He struggled, and he struggled badly. And Miles Simon had mentioned on the broadcast he needed to make a shooting adjustment to shoot it over the rim. So I thought their offensive woes were pretty telling, and a guy that is just perplexing to me still is Antonio Chol. You see spots, and you're like, hey, man, he's in the groove. And then he disappears for like, say, 10 minutes. And when he's going, the best is when he shoots shots within the offense that are for him. That's when he's going or attacks the rim. But for a while there, you won't see him do anything. I thought they struggled, and I thought Boise State's defense had a lot to do with it.
Talking about Boise State's defense, Nick, I'm going to hand this next one over to you. I thought that coming into this game, the Lobos have, for the most part of the season, leaned on a guy like Jake Hall to come in, averaging just shy of 15 points per game, and coming in first real road conference game. I thought that Boise State played him about as well as anybody could have played him. They were physical. They almost bullied him at times, and Jake Hall just never got comfortable out there. Shot looked a little bit flat from the three-point line. Shot looked a little bit rushed. He wasn't able to get inside the paint and kind of maneuver around with his footwork like he tends to do, and he executes. He just didn't knock down shots that he normally hits. Now, did this kind of already confirm what we thought about Boise State's defense in terms of physicality? You did address that in your preview of the game, but how would you kind of describe how they played Jake Hall and pretty much turned him into a non-factor?
Well, they had RJ Keene, the 6'7" senior, guarding him, and Keene's played a lot of basketball, man, and he's 6'7". So I think just his experience, his maturity on the defensive end, starting with that, made it really difficult for Jake Hall. Jake got some catch and shoot threes. Let's not pretend like he didn't. And he's made those throughout the course of the season. So I think he got some looks that typically he knocks down that he did not knock down. He had some from the top of the key. He had one in the second half on a great dribble penetration drive to from Dayton Albury in the left corner that he just missed. So I thought he got some looks. When he did drive, there were 2 times that he had his shot blocked. Once he went baseline in the first half, tried to put up a layup. I think it was on Keene or maybe it was on Dominic Parolin. I can't remember, but he got his shot swatted bad. And then in the second half, he pulled up mid-range and got his shot blocked again. So I think just that length, Eric, you put a guy like Keene on him. Pearson Carmichael guarded him at times. Pearson Carmichael, a 6'7" sophomore for Boise State. So just that length really bothered him. When he did put the ball on the floor to try to penetrate, Boise State's got one guy, 6'7", on the ball. And then, like we talked about in the preview, they had 6 guys over 6'7". So if he drives, you've got 6'7", Fielder at 6'11" inside, Dominic Parolin 6'9". So those guys are helping contest shots of his as well. And I thought the length and experience of Boise State's defense just really bothered Jake Hall.
Hey, Ed, coming into this game, not having Howell again due to an illness, he stayed back in Albuquerque. But the Lobo bench was already short to begin with. But then you look at early in that game, Dayton Albury picks up 2 quick fouls. Bouillon picks up 2 quick fouls. I think he ends up picking up his 3rd foul there late in the first half, and that just limits their impact because they're not on the floor as much. Albury sees about 24, 25 minutes. Bouillon's had about 25 minutes in that game too. But this is a team that needs to rely on those 2 guys to be on the floor. Now, just looking at defensive tactic, defensive pressure, we know that Albury is physical. He's all over the floor. He's a defensive energy. He's a catalyst out there. But at what point do you have to draw that line to say, hey, you might need to tone it down because it's important that the Lobos keep him on the floor? And then especially Bouillon. Bouillon picked up a silly foul there. I think it was out of frustration on maybe a missed call on the other side of the floor. But what was your take there on just kind of overall defensive pressure and the Lobos just playing smart basketball, not picking up those fouls because they do need those players on the floor and they do need those minutes because they're impactful?
Game's different on the road. We mentioned that New Mexico hasn't beaten Boise State since 2017 on the road. There's some cheap calls that you could have said could have gone the other way. That's life on the road. We know that. I think we expected a little bit more ball pressure from Tannett. Albury's going to do that. Does he gamble as much as House? No. House was going to gamble a little bit, get some fouls, get some steals. That guy's one of the conference leaders in steals. Jalen House was and score and get the fans going. Albury's a little bit different. I thought though that did hurt though. They need him out there. And then Uriah Tannett had a one shot inside, right wide open, went off the glass. Milos Vicencic got to the rim right there, didn't make it. So I think back to your point about the defense of they the Lobos thrive on that. New Mexico thrives on the defensive pressure. He's going to be who he is, Eric. I think he's a little bit different. He doesn't gamble, like I said, as much as Jalen House, but his ball pressure is important. It really is. He's going to get up on people, and we know, again, the game is called different sometimes on the road than it is at home, and he wasn't the beneficiary of calls that he might not usually get. And getting 2 fouls took him out of rhythm. Getting 2 fouls on Bouillon took him out of rhythm. JT Rock didn't give New Mexico anything. He 0 points, 4 rebounds. He didn't. Again, though, it's driving. Kenny Thomas talks about this all the time. He's got guys posted up, and I think you mentioned it, Eric. You texted me. They're looking him off. They're not giving him the ball, when he's open. So they just didn't get much from their bench. Tannett, who's usually reliable, had some looks, open looks. They just didn't go in. And when the ball's not going in, and I was listening to Nick and Kenny Thomas on Kenny Thomas Live. New Mexico 5 of 10 down the stretch at the free throw line. That didn't help either. The caller actually thought that would have turned the tide. It was not New Mexico's night, man. It was an ugly game, and they didn't play well. They need to regroup. But Saturday, Wyoming's coming in the pit. They don't have much time to cry in their soup, man. They got to get ready.
Nick, UNM's ability, or in this game, inability to consistently score in the half court was probably the biggest glaring factor in this game here on where they fell short. 20 for 65 field goals made, 3 from 25 stands out like a sore thumb. But guys like Jake Hall that you can usually count on, even Uriah Tannett, you figured would kind of get into the scoring box a little bit. But Tomislav Bouillon didn't really start scoring and wasn't much of an impact offensively early on. And he almost became a little forceful once he did get the ball on the block, but it didn't feel like it was naturally coming out of the offense or the offensive flow. It was almost like it was forced. He was getting the ball. He was doing a lot of dribbling. He was doing a lot of backing down. And this isn't typically how this offense thrives off of. Now, UNM's inability to score in the half court, do you think that was more led by their inability just to make shots? Do you think they were getting shots that they wanted to get out of the offense? Or do you think Boise State's defense was just that good? They were that physical and UNM just couldn't get anything to go?
I thought they got some of the shots they wanted, Eric. Some of those threes for Jake Hall, some of those threes for Antonio Chol. Hall goes 0 for 7. Chol goes, 2 for 7, I think. So some of those shots you're fine with. Some of the shots at the rim, like my dad mentioned, Albury attacked the paint not as often as he normally does. And I think some of that, to your point, is Boise's length. All those guys that I mentioned, man, when you're penetrating against 6'7", 6'7", 6'9", 6'11", it's a little different, that amount of size. Now, some teams have guys that are 6'10", 6'11", but when you've got 6'7", 6'9", guarding you all over the floor, they take away angles. UNM wasn't able to get that paint penetration that they normally get, where Albury penetrates and then he kicks it to Hall, and then Hall may make that extra pass, and then one guy drives to the basket. You didn't see that kind of flow to UNM's offense, and I think a lot of that is credit to Boise State's defense. One thing I was disappointed in, Eric, is UNM just didn't get really anything in transition. They had 10 fast break points, 6 points off, I think, 9 Boise State turnovers. So I thought there was an opportunity for UNM to get this game up and down. They weren't able to turn Boise State over on the defensive end. Some of that is Boise State's maturity. They got a lot of older players. Drew Fielder, I think he's a junior. Dylan Andrews, the senior transfer from UCLA. So they just didn't generate really as many turnovers as maybe they could have. A lost opportunity there. Didn't get anything in transition. They got 10 points, but it wasn't a difference at all in the game. So I thought that hurt them too a little bit.
Hey Ed, you know ball, man. basketball is a game of runs. And in this one particularly, I was just looking at the runs that UNM went on. Started the game on an 8-0 run, and then in the second half they went on a 15-0 run. But Boise State was able to answer about halfway through the first half, and then they answered again twice in the second half. In the first half, they won on a 9-0 run, and then the second half, they won on their own 7-0 run, and then followed that with a 10-0 run, which goes down as a kill for them. But what do you think kind of worked for UNM coming out of the gate, and then was Boise State's defense just kind of putting up a wall there at the end? It looked like UNM did really good at the beginning of those halves. Like they made all the appropriate adjustments. But Nick just talked about the defense and shot selection. But what was your take, and why couldn't the Lobos keep up with that scoring momentum when they started both halves?
Thought they ran their offense really well and got the shots that they shot the shots within their offense that they normally do. Lately, when they've been on their little win streak, it's been by offense by committee. It hasn't been just one guy, Jake Hall, Antonio Chol, Tanet, Luke Hopt, JT Rock had all pitched in. Thomas Bullion had missed a couple of games. Milos Vicentic comes off the bench and has 19. He didn't have anything on Thursday night or Wednesday, but it had been by committee. So I thought when they had their runs, they got they ran their offense and they got the shots that they wanted. But let's remember, I think Leon Rice is a good coach, man. He's a good coach. And watches tendencies of teams. And I thought that they shut New Mexico down after that run, and they shut them down pretty convincingly. They just couldn't get to their spots. Jake Hall, Nick mentioned, had several good looks off of 2 feet, and he just couldn't make them, and he wasn't even close. So those are shots New Mexico wants, and they didn't, they didn't make them. And it was one of those nights where the ball just didn't go to the rim. And again, I got to give Leon Rice a lot of credit. He's been coaching one of the best coaches in the conference. So I thought their defense used their length, keep them out of the paint, challenge them at the rim. That's what they did. Who don't foul. Did a good job of that. So New Mexico had those 2 runs, couldn't sustain them. That was the game. And then the free throws down the stretch, they hurt too. They did. They didn't make their free throws. That might have got them back in. But they just wasn't their night, and they've had a hard time winning at Boise State, since 2017. So, what is it? 8 straight now that they've lost over there.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, UNM tends to always struggle there, but you do got to credit Boise State for coming with the game plan they did, and I felt like their bench production was also a little bit more productive than UNM's. And Nick, you talked about it in your post-game recap, but with Spencer Ahrens, freshman, I'm not sure where he's from, but he's a highly touted guy. I think he averages about 5 points a game, came in off the bench, hit a couple of threes, finished the game with 12 points. And the Lobos just didn't really get much out of the 2 or 3 guys that they typically get it from, but credit to Boise State. But I do want to kind of ask you more of a theoretical question, just kind of outlook for the season for UNM moving forward, getting that first touch of in-conference play. But I kind of feel like this game might have exposed UNM a little bit in a way that maybe there is a deficiency with their offensive production, or where are they going to turn to, and who are those guys that they can rely on to go get a bucket if you need one? Because up to this point in the season, I think we got a lot of that from a guy like Jake Hall. I think we've seen Albury kind of turn a corner and be a guy that can consistently get maybe 15 to 18 points per game, but we just didn't get that out of those guys this game, and they kind of held Jake Hall in check. So if UNM can't get that type of production, which to have that expectation in a true freshman like Jake Hall is asking for a lot, man. So kind of looking forward, conference play, I feel like the games are just going to be that much tighter. The scouts on all these guys are going to be just that much more known. Who does UNM turn to, and do you look at a guy like maybe Chol to kind of pick up some of that production?
Yeah, man, as far as this loss and what it means for UNM going forward, I definitely think it's a wake-up call, right? They were on a 7-game winning streak coming into this game. First true conference road test. Give them credit for the road game they won at VCU, traveling across the country. They get a lot of credit for that. But this one was a conference game on the road. And it was the first one for this coaching staff and for this team. So I think we give them a little bit of a break and a little bit of a pass on that. To your point, I do think there are some glaring holes with this team. One of them is when they're not shooting the basketball well, where's their offense coming from? Like you just asked. They got 16 and 10 or 11 rebounds from Bouillon. So can cross him and say he did his job. Dayton Albury, 12 points, 5 of 11 shooting, only went to the free throw line twice. He's 22nd in the country in the Ken Pom statistic of fouls drawn per 40 minutes. So you'd like to see him get to the line more. That's how UNM can get some points. Uriah Tenet has not shot the ball well the last 3 games. He has not. He was 1 for 4 from 3 against Boise State, 2 for 7 from the field. I looked at his numbers over the last 3 games against FGCU, San Jose State, and Boise State. He's 1 of 12 from the 3-point line. So he's gotten into a little bit of a shooting slump. One of his shots against Boise was kind of last 30 seconds desperation heave, so we'll give him a break there. But they're going to need something from the bench, like you mentioned, Eric. I mean, they got outscored 37-7 in bench points. Boise State, Pearson Carmichael had 11 points off the bench. A.G. Neto, the freshman point guard, number 1, thought he had some nice takes to the basket. UNM, guys like Milos Vicentić, 19 points off the bench. Tajavis Miller came in, hit a couple threes in the second half against San Jose State. Didn't get anything from those guys. I mean, Milos Vicentić missed a wide open layup. JT Rock is a guy who's been in double figures the last few games for UNM. Like my dad mentioned, 0 for 4 from the field, 0 points. I thought this was a game where he kind of got beat up a little bit down low. I mean, he did get 4 rebounds, but they just got to be balanced, Eric. Chol and Hall are their 2 best shooters. They're the only guys on the team that are shooting over 35% from the 3-point line. You're going to rely on Albury to get into the paint, score at the rim, score at the free throw line. You're going to rely on Bouillon to score inside. They've got to have that kind of 3rd, 4th, and 5th scorer that gives them something between 6 and 12 points. They're going to need it from 3 other guys other than your typical guys being Bouillon, Albury, Chol, and Hall. You're going to need Tenet, somebody else off the bench to step up and make shots, and they didn't get that against Boise. Hopefully they can rebound and do that against Wyoming.
Hey, Ed, I'm going to ask you the same theoretical question. I'm not sure if you heard it or not when I first asked Nick, but just kind of this game and Lobos just kind of running into a wall and really kind of not having any answers, maybe kind of hit their ceiling offensively and maybe just a little deficient at times. But when you don't get the production that the Lobos have been getting from guys like J. Call, and then even a guy like Rock, who has been in double figures and has been really impactful on the defensive side. I think he did get another block this game, but he still had no points. Tajavis Miller had 0 points. Luke Hopp came in with 8, and he played a lot of minutes. But if you're not going to get the double figure guys like J. Call or Albury or Bouillon, who on this roster would you look to kind of pick up some of that production when needed?
I think, Nick made a point about Antonio Chol, but I think one of the things that Kenny talks about, Kenny Thomas, I'm on a show twice a week. Who's that guy that's going to get the bucket when you need one? And Nick just mentioned that. It was Hall for a while, and he didn't shoot well, but they were shooting well by committee, and they did score the other night. So, Albury had a poor game. So when that happens, and they're going to have to figure that one out. There's the guy when the clock's running down and you need a bucket. Who's that guy? Last year we knew was Donovan and Nelly and Washington would get one. We knew there's guys that could catch the ball and take it to the rim or score late in the clock. And so I thought that problem was exposed the other night. They're going to have to coaches are going to scout accordingly and game plan accordingly. They're going to have to figure it out. JT Rock, he did get a block. But if you notice, a lot of his blocks are flat-footed. He's he doesn't play on his toes and explode into his jump. He's not a great shot blocker. He's learning all those things in the paint, the catch, turn around, shoot. Where's the guy? To dominate in that paint area takes reps, takes practice, takes confidence. He's not there, not yet. He's improved. Please understand what I'm saying. He's improved a lot. But as far as like, going in there, Kenny and I were talking about it the other day. When Kenny was in that paint, you knew darn well he had his man pinned. Give me the ball, give it to me. Got that hunger, that look. You knew that if he got it, he's going to score or kick it back out. Kevin Henry, if you remember, you guys were kind of, young, but Kevin Henry made his living off of Kenny. He didn't get a good look. But when Kenny left, Kevin Henry got 0 open looks anymore because Kenny was a willing passer. But it takes a while to dominate and learn how to play inside the paint. It's going to take him a while. He's gotten better. But I think, going back to that, when those guys are all shut down, Albury had a game. He played okay. But, to going into the paint like that, they swatted it, man. They took the message from Rice, like, hey, man, don't let this guy just saunter. If you're a coach and you're seeing that, you're seeing this guy just drive straight in, someone's going to say, wait a minute, we got to stop. Set a wall up. Stop him here. Block the shot. Don't foul. That's what happened. You're going to see more of that. I like Albury's game a lot. I really do. Downhill driver. And then he's going to kick back out. He's played really well. He's the motor, right? But when you're struggling offensively like that, there's usually one guy says, you know what? I know I'm going to score. Give me the ball. And they didn't have that the other night. And they're going to have to work on that. There's guys that can score, and they're going to need to step up and score, obviously, when things aren't going right. And just an overall bad night the other night. Does Chris Howell coming back hopefully on Saturday, does that help? I think it does a little bit. He's a cog in the machine, though. Kenny asked me about him. Is Chris Howell that guy? Chris Howell's a solid player, but he's a cog in the machine. Yes, he'll hit a couple threes. He'll back people down, but is he that guy? Would he have helped the other night? Probably. Would have helped a little bit, but he's not that explosive, 20-point a game, 15-point a game scorer, high basketball IQ, though. So that's your answer, Eric. They're just going to have to shoot the ball better. And they did. Think about it. For a couple runs in the first half and the second half, they look smooth. They look fluid. And then after that, it was like, Boise State timeout, defense took over, and New Mexico had no answer.
Yeah, well, I don't want to sit here and continue to beat a dead horse, but I do want to talk about one more thing, and then we'll take a quick break and come back and preview the Wyoming game, which is going to taking place on Saturday, January 3rd at the Pit. It's a 6:00 game. But Nick, I'm going to kind of pose this to you next. But with Chris Howell being out the last couple of games, he's kind of the emotional anchor on this team in a lot of ways, right? He's kind of the one that settles things down. Just, I know he's not the elite scorer, he's not the elite athlete out there, but he is the guy that has the most experience, and he seems to just be the most even keel, kind of balanced setter, right? Like, just, you can rely on someone like that. But maybe that's kind of the missing ingredient for the last game at Boise. I don't know if UNM goes into Boise and knocks them off if Chris Howell plays in that game. But I mean, are we kind of discounting what the value is Chris Howell brings to this team?
Yeah, Eric, I think it's a fair question. I think a lot of Lobo fans do hate on Chris Howell sometimes. And, we have the pleasure we're very fortunate to get the seats that we do at Lobo basketball games. We're very grateful for that. But sometimes when he turns the ball over, I feel like Lobo fans are a little hard on him. Look at his numbers. He averages, about 5 points a game, 3 assists, has not shot the ball great. He had that one really good game against UC Riverside where he led the team with 15 points. And this is just him scoring. You talk to Coach Olin, he'll say he does so many other things for us other than score the basketball. Like we mentioned, he averages 3.4 assists. What does UNM win if he goes to Boise and is fully healthy? I don't know. It's so hard to say, Eric. There's so many variables in basketball games. Maybe. I think what he also brings to this team is defense. Usually him and Luke Hopt are oftentimes trading off on guarding the other team's best perimeter scorer. You mentioned his leadership. I think that's certainly unquestioned, and there is a lot of value in that in of itself. The vocal leader that he is, he knows the system probably better than any other player on the team. So, yes, I think they have missed in the last 2 games. They found a way to get it done without him against San Jose State. I think in particular, a game like this, a road game, because it's hard to win on the road, man. I was with Kenny Thomas in studio. Very thankful to Kenny Thomas for allowing me to get on Lobos Live with Kenny Thomas with him. But, yeah, he was saying, man, he's like, you have no idea how hard it is to win on the road in college basketball. It's really hard. So, hopefully he's healthy for Wyoming. We'll see. Coach Olin said they're going to try to get him ready. He's got media availability tomorrow, so we'll see what he says about that, if anything. But, yeah, hopefully they can get him back.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I think Ed is calling it a night, but Nick and I will be back to preview Wyoming.
Time is running out. This is the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford. It's your last shot of the year to grab massive dealer discounts, year-end factory incentives, and aggressive trade-in offers. Like a new 25 Ford Explorer with 0% APR for 60 months, or 0% APR for 60 months plus no payments for 90 days on a new 25 Ford F-150. So hurry for these exceptional end-of-year offers during the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
We are back from a short commercial break, and it's just me and you, Nick. And now we can kind of jump into Wyoming. Wyoming is coming off a conference win over Air Force at Clune Arena in Colorado Springs. They knocked off the Falcons. I know that not a whole lot can be said about Air Force. That's traditionally a tough place to travel to and play, because the Falcons do play a little bit better at home and have knocked off some teams in the past. And I think they almost had San Diego State on the ropes there about a season or two, and San Diego State had to rely on a last-second buzzer beater to steal one there. But looking ahead to the Wyoming Cowboys and Coach Sonny Wicks, just kind of their overall style and identity, for as much as we have seen this year, they look like a team to have kind of a deep rotation. No player really averages more than 25 points per game. They run about 11 or 12 man rotation, guys off the bench. They do get some production off the bench. Rebounding is a big emphasis of theirs, and defensive pressure. So they do force teams into a lot of turnovers. Looks like they average about 14 forced turnovers per game, and they play fast. They like to run up and down, so they play good transition basketball. And kind of the Coach Wicks mantra, they rely heavily on effort type stats. These guys are dogs, man. They get after it. Not a ton of high sought out recruits, because that's kind of for a different podcast topic, but just overall NIL, they just don't have that type of support from their collective to go out and get some of these high sought out recruits. And Wyoming's not typically known to be a basketball scorer, but scoring, they put up about 85 points per game, and they hold their opponents to 71 per game. So, Nick, you took a ton of notes, man, and you're on the analytical side of the Cowboys, but what else can you tell us about them, and just specifically looking at maybe some of their KenPom?
Yeah, for sure. Wyoming 10-3 on the season, 1-1 in conference play. Like you mentioned, Eric, coming off that 68-56 win over Air Force. Just real quick on that game, it was kind of ugly for Wyoming. They did not start the game well. They had a ton of turnovers to start out. Then they got hot from three. Their freshman, Naz Meyer, led them, I think, with 14 points and 6 assists. You mentioned the depth of this team, Eric. 40 bench points per game is what I calculated for the Wyoming Cowboys. So it's really hard to predict, like, who's going to score for them on any given night. They're led in scoring by 3 guys that score double figures. We mentioned Naz Meyer. He's at 14 points per game. Leland Walker, a name that some people may remember. He's a transfer from FAU. He leads the team at 13.5 points per game. Shoots pretty well from the field, 47 from the field, 33% from the three-point line, 53% effective field goal percentage for Leland Walker. Really showed out for them, Eric, in their game against Texas Tech earlier this season, a 76-72 loss for the Cowboys in Lubbock. Walker had a season-high 28 points against them. So he's really good off the ball, man. He's a 6'1" senior guard. He's played a lot of college basketball. He's number 5 for Lobo fans, so the ball is going to be in his hands a lot. And then Naz Meyer, kind of their other go-to scorer, a 6'7" freshman forward that's been named Mountain West Freshman of the Week 3 times already this season. Season high 26 points against South Dakota. Very efficient shooting numbers for Meyer in that game. He was 11 of 15 from the field, 4 of 5 from the three-point line. So he shoots 41% from three on high volume. So just a weapon for them, man. And then Caden Bennett is their other double-figure scorer, 10 points a game, 4.8 rebounds per game. He leads the team in steals, and I think we can maybe transition into this, Eric, that pace that you were talking about that Wyoming plays with. Their advanced Ken Palm statistic. I'm trying to pull up where they are as far as their their adjusted tempo. They're 124th in the country, so that's not really high, but a number that stood out to me a lot was the 11 steals that they get per game. 11 steals a game is a lot. I mean, that's 11 live ball turnovers that you're creating an opportunity for transition. I don't think they get a ton of fast break points. I'd have to pull that number up, but they will press. I think they will press UNM tomorrow. I think they do have the athletes, kind of similar to a VCU in a way, Eric. VCU was a team that also played a lot of guys, a lot of bench guys, and UNM stepped up and won on the road. They should be able to do that here when they'll have elevation, although Wyoming plays at a higher elevation than we do. So I don't think you can really count on that being a factor in this game. But yeah, man, those are kind of some of the Ken Palm stats that jump out to me and some of their key guys.
Yeah, looking at some of the statistical patterns that you just mentioned, so regularly getting 15 to 25 points off turnovers just looks to me like they like to apply a lot of ball pressure. A team that relies pretty heavily on their guard play. I mean, you talk about a guy like Naz Meyer, true breakout freshman. I feel like the Mountain West has a few true freshmen around the league that have been really impactful. Really good so far this season, so that's kind of exciting to follow. But their bench scoring is another key factor for me. I think that's something that UNM doesn't have, so I think I would look to in this game is if Wicks is going to roll out 11, 12-man rotation and he's getting that much production off his bench, are the Lobos going to be able to keep pace with something like that? Because when you see guys come in off the bench, you tend to see the scoring efficiency go down a little bit. They tend to be streaky, right? And they hit those 5 and even 6-7 minute scoring droughts. In a game like this, when Wyoming's consistently rolling out fresh guys out there, fresh legs, and they're not taking their foot off the gas, this is going to be one of those games that they're not going to be able to let Wyoming continue to go on some of those runs. So I think it's important that the Lobos lock in defensively. I also think it's important that they stay out of foul trouble. And I think just based off what we've seen in recent games with UNM, foul trouble has become an issue. And hopefully they do start to get some of their guys back, like a Chris Howell, who we talked about just a few minutes ago. So really an interesting team. They were starting to catch a lot of attention from guys like the Field of 68 and Rob Douster because they did start out so hot coming into Mountain West play. I think they were like 9-1 or 8-2 or something like that. So they were winning and they were playing high level of basketball. And not something that you typically see a Wyoming team do. Usually they're a team that sits at the bottom of the league, but they've kind of caught in this league by storm and surprising a lot of people. So I don't think that the Lobos are going to come in and feel like they can have an off night like they just did and come away with the win, especially at home. So it's a team that they're going to have to pay attention to. And I feel like the Lobos can get hurt by a lot of the players that are coming off and on the bench for Wyoming.
Yeah, no doubt, man. One guy that had a really good game against Air Force hit the dagger for the Cowboys to put him up by 10 with 1:55 left. That would be guard Uriah Rojas, number 0063 guard from junior college. He's a former junior college All-American, scored over 1,100 points in JUCO, scores 8.3 points per game off the bench in about 17 minutes of play, shoots a lot off the bench. So he's somebody I think you're going to see hoist some shots up. Shoots about 7 shots per game. He shot 83 field goals on the season through 83 games, through 13 games. And then just his shooting percentage is pretty efficient. He shoots 50% from the field, 43% from the three-point line, a 60% effective field goal percentage. That's pretty good. And like we mentioned, just hit a big shot for Wyoming against Air Force. Another guy that played pretty well against the Falcons was Adam Harco, a 6'7" wing, a D2 transfer from Lake Superior State, averages 7.3 points per game off the bench. Also shoots pretty well from the three-point line, 38%. He's 13 of 34 on the season, fourth on the team in steals with 12 on the year. And again, he's 6'7". And then one guy that's a freshman for them, who's the biggest player on the team in terms of height, that would be number 11, Gavin Gores, a true freshman at 6'10", 5 points per game, 2 rebounds per game, was Mountain West Freshman of the Week in week 2. So he's somebody that can be an impact player. And, I did watch Jeff Grammer's podcast, his Talking Grammar podcast, his latest episode with Sundance Wicks. Lobo fans should go check that out, learn a little bit more about the Cowboys. But, Coach Wicks was just talking about they wanted to change their identity. They were one of the slowest teams last year in KenPom in terms of pace. He talks about pace being kind of like a weird statistic. Just because you play with tempo and pace doesn't mean you have a transition, possession every single time. It's kind of the way that you can play with pace in the half court by setting efficient screens, moving the ball really well. His team does press quite a bit, it seems, this season in the few games that I've seen. So just a new Wyoming team this year. And like you mentioned, Eric, they're deep, man. So the Lobos are going to need to be ready.
Well, we are rounding third on this episode and headed home. But I know, Nick, you're probably going to be coming out with a preview for this game for the Pit Press nm.com website that we have on this. So just kind of your keys to the game. I know that it's an interesting matchup. I know that Wyoming has been playing pretty good basketball for the most part of the season, right? And so for UNM to walk out of the pit on Saturday night with a win, go 1-1 in conference play, what are you looking for?
I think they got to handle Wyoming's depth, man. We talked about it a lot already, but Wyoming's a team that's going to play 9 to 11 guys in this game. They don't have anybody that plays over 25 minutes, so they stay really fresh. Some of the statistics that we talked about, their KenPom defensive adjusted efficiency is 86th, and they're 93rd in KenPom in defensive effective field goal percentage. So they force teams to shoot challenge shots. I looked at their Wyoming Cowboys basketball profile. According to their stats on their website, they force teams to shoot 28% from the three-point line. So UNM's going to have to hit shots. We shot horrendous against Boise State, 20 of 65, 30%, and 3 of 25 from the three-point line. It ain't going to cut it. We've got to shoot better at home. I expect Jake Hall to have a bounce-back game. I hope Uriah Tinette finds ways to impact the game. I think hopefully we can count on Albury and Bouillon to give us what they consistently give us. And, another thing that Wyoming does really well is they rebound the ball pretty well. They're 13th in the country in defensive rebound rate and 47th in the country in offensive rebound rate. They average about 14 second chance points per game. UNM did lose the rebound count to Boise. I think it was 48-37. Boise State with 48, UNM with 37. Both teams shot so bad, so you got to figure there's going to be a lot of rebounds in the game. They're going to have to rebound. They're going to have to play with Wyoming's depth, and they're going to have to knock down shots to get back on track.
I love it, man, and I think that's exciting to watch the head-to-head matchups of the true freshmen. So you're looking at Bouillon and Jake Hall, and then that Naz Meyer. I've seen some highlights. I've watched some partial games of them, so it's going to be an exciting one. Hope people turn out to the pit Saturday night, 6 o'clock, January 3rd. And I think I misspoke earlier. I think that I was saying that the Lobos are looking to go 1-1 in conference play. They already are 1-1, so they're looking to go 2-1 in Mountain West play. So for Eric Moulton and Nick Nunez, we want to thank you guys for watching and listening to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast.